This is a very gentle mat-bound practice for your luteal phase. This one is body weight only, and all you will need is a mat for your practice. I am joining you from the very last days of my cycle, and I have to say that this practice felt just right. It wasn't too intense, but I definitely can feel the activation and kind of that energetic rising that comes with a bit of invigorating practice. So we're kind of alternating between periods of strength, so kind of a higher effort, and then a period of stretching or lengthening. So we have this wave of practice that circles throughout and will leave you feeling very balanced. So it won't let you get so activated that you feel, a bit anxious or kind of overworked, but it won't be so low energy that you kind of have a hard time getting up afterward. It's not so relaxing that it will leave you feeling more tired than when you started. So it's that nice balance of effort and ease throughout. This is a beginner body weight practice. So many of the movements are very simple, but very effective. So we'll put the body in kind of these very strategic positions so that we can access different muscle groups and target muscle groups in an isolated way so that you feel the effort and you can feel the alignment. Lots of movements in today's practice will support your postural strength. So think the rivers of the spine awakening so that as you walk off your mat, maybe you feel a bit taller. It feels easier to sit upright in your desk chair. So all of these things work to support you in those last days of the luteal phase. This is a great one throughout your cycle, gentle enough anytime you need kind of a lower impact, lower intensity practice, but you still want to keep moving. But I love this one for that last half of the luteal phase, the days leading up to your period, where you just need to keep yourself in circulation. Perhaps you're looking for kind of the antidote to your PMS. This is a great practice for that. So again, like I said, all you need is your mat and your breath. This one is the workout only. It's standalone, so start to finish is a complete practice. And let's get started. Welcome to this gentle mat-bound practice for your luteal phase, where we are going to invite a little bit of strength, a little bit of stretching to give you a well-rounded movement practice during this time in your cycle. Let's begin in child's pose, bringing the big toes to touch, the knees wide apart. Let your hips sink down to your heels and stretch your arms forward. If this amount of flexion is uncomfortable in the knees, you can always lift the hips up and maybe just come to the forearms. Find a space that's comfortable enough for you to settle in and begin your practice. You might rest the eyes closed for a few breaths here and just offer a bit of a survey of your inner landscape to pick up on anything that might be coming up for you, whether it be a sensation somewhere in your body, maybe you're feeling tired or energized, and just kind of scanning for these qualities so that you know how to enter your practice. You know what your intention is. You know how you want to leave your practice feeling in a particular way. With your next inhale breath, come up to a tabletop, shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. Stretch from crown to tail, create that nice long spine. Soft bend in the elbows here, spread your fingers wide. With an inhale, soften the belly, stretch the spine, and lift the gaze up and out. Shine your sitting bones back. On your exhale from the tail, curl under, draw your belly into spine, press through your hands to round into the back of the heart, draw your chin to your chest. Find the full motion in the spine. Inhale from your sitting bones, shine them back, ripple that wave all the way to the crown. And as you exhale, reverse it, curl the tail in, coil the belly, chin to chest. 3 more times like this, inhaling and exhaling. You could create an entire practice around this movement in the spine. Inhale. And just learning to map, exhale, the movement onto the rhythm of your breath. Last one here. Big inhale, stretch the spine. And exhale, round. When you're ready, inhale, stretch your left arm open. Keep pressing through the right hand. Really feel some twist across the front of the chest. And as you exhale, wrap that left arm under, bring your left ear to the mat. Spider your right fingertips beside you so that you can leverage a deeper twist here. Try to square the hip creases, lift them up and back. Press through the shins and the tops of the feet. And then with your right fingertips, press down and open. Feel this rotation, maybe a gentle massage in the low back. And slowly unravel that. Left arm stretches up and we'll exchange sides. Left hand down, right arm reaches. On your exhale, wrap that right arm under, bring right ear to the mat. Spider your left fingertips, press them down and twist open. Stretch your hip creases up and back. Try to square the hips so that you really take advantage of that rotational quality in the spine. Last big breath here. And then slowly unravel, open the right arm and come back through center. I'll turn to face you here. And now I'll be mirroring you in movement, facing you from this direction. So we'll begin by taking the right leg, out to the side. Let the toes stay facing forward, outer edge of the foot parallel to the short edge of your mat. Untuck your back toes, your left toes. And here we'll come into a kneeling position. So we'll lift up, keep the spine stretching nice and tall. Allow your hands to come to the back of your head, press your elbows wide. And from here, we'll enjoy a single-sided asymmetrical hip thrust. So we're coming down, sitting on that back heel, and lifting up, squeezing the glutes at the top. Lowering down, bit of a hinge at the hips, and lifting up. Lower down. This can be as quick or as slow as you like. Try to move the upper body crown to tail as a unit. So we're sitting back and down and lifting up. This is engaging the glutes, working that left quad here. If it's uncomfortable to have your hands behind your head, you can always take hands to hips or maybe even out to the sides to invite the arms to participate a little bit. We'll take 10 more like this. 10, you can even create some movement with the arms, reaching them forward and back. 9, 8, 7, really press through that bottom shin. 5, 4, 3, you got this. 2, and 1. Pause here. Take the hands down in front of you. And then any amount, we're going to lift the extended leg out to the side. So head and neck stay neutral. Simply lift up, tap down. Lift up, tap down. If you need to, you can spider the fingers to take a bit of weight and pressure off the wrists. And as best as you can, try not to lean into that left hip. So we're trying to keep the hips square, keep the torso level. You'll feel not only the glute working, but the sides of the waist. Last 5 here. 5, 4, nice and slow. 3, 2, and 1. From here, bring that foot back down onto the mat. Lower into your half child's pose here. Again, if the flexion is too much in the knee, you can always be on forearms and come forward a bit. Here, we're focusing on stretching the inseam of the right leg. So allow your gaze to bow inward here for a moment, just absorbing the effort. So we'll alternate in this practice between periods of effort and then periods of ease. So kind of balancing those two qualities in our movement practice. You can start to flex the toes up. Notice how that changes the sensation. Maybe rock side to deepen. And then slowly come back up, bring the right knee to join the left. We'll come back into our kneeling position here. We're moving into camel leans. So the backs of the feet, the tops of the feet are pressing down. Your shins are pressing down to create that stable anchor. And from here, we're simply leaning back as far as you can go without arching the back and coming forward. I'll show this from the side. We're leaning back and coming forward. You can let your arms be wherever they are most supportive for you. For me, naturally, they come forward as a bit of counterbalance. And what that does also is provides a bit of a lever arm. So you're taking advantage, making the most of your body weight to work some strength in the fronts of the legs. Here, breathe, press through the tops of the feet, the shins. Can you spread the toes wide? So you have that wide base of support as you lean back. Let's do 5 more. 5, 4, 3, breathe here. 2, last one. Keep the glutes firm here and come up. Lower your hands to the mat, coming back into your tabletop position. This time we'll send the left leg out to the side. You can release the right foot down and make sure that you have space for your spine to stretch nice and long. From here, rising to your kneeling position. If you can, keep the toes facing the long edge of your mat. And then here, hands, again, wherever they're most comfortable, maybe behind the head or at the hip creases. We're moving into that single leg hip thrust here. So we lower down, hinge at the hips, and come up. So we're not rounding in the spine, not arching the back, but keeping crown to tail moving together. So create that balance, that stability here, and the focus. So it's slow enough that you can stay present. You can really draw out the breath. So we're not approaching that breathless place, but instead you can dictate the rhythm, you can calibrate the rhythm of your movement to the pace of your breath. Generate a little bit of heat here. We'll go 10 more. 10. Find the full range of motion all the way up and all the way down. 8, 7. Keep the back of the neck neutral. 6, 5, 4, almost there. 3, 2, and 1. Coming up, bring your hands once again to the mat in front of you. And then we're entering our leg lift. So we'll be lifting the left leg up and back. So up and bring it down, tap the toes. Try not to rest weight on that foot. Just let it be light as you tap it down. And again, can you keep your right hip square? So try not to lean into that right hip. Lift up and lower down. And down. Squaring the shoulders so that you can really isolate the movement, isolate the activation into that left glute. Last 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. From here, lowering your right hip onto the right heel, coming down any amount. So again, you can be on forearms, you can stay on your hands, or you can come all the way down, resting your belly on that right thigh. You might circle the left foot, alternate between flexing and pointing the foot, wherever you need to feel that sensation along the inseam of the left leg. So resting here, collecting your breath, and just noticing now, after our first series, how your body feels. If you need to dial it back, depending on where you are in the luteal phase, whether it's kind of early in that phase or you're approaching your period, you might have a very different experience. As you're ready, slowly begin to unfold. Come back into tabletop. I'll turn to face the short edge of my mat now. You might join me there. We'll keep the shoulders over the wrists, tuck the toes under, keep the hips over the knees, and let your knees hover off the mat. Close the gap between low ribs and hip points. As you close that gap, can you stretch the heart forward? Keep the shoulders and the hips level. So we're not trying to pop it up. We're keeping the knees just an inch or two off the mat. From here, we're going to step out wide and back in, nice and slow. Switch sides, out wide and back in. So the slowness here keeps you under tension the whole time. We're recruiting some activation in the belly and a bit of coordination, so communicating from one side to the other. Don't sweat it if you don't change sides. Just keep moving here. Nice, slow, and controlled steps. Keep stretching the heart. Keep a micro bend in the elbows so that you're activating the arms. We're not collapsing into the joints. We'll take 3 more from here. Here we go. That's 1. In. That's 2. Out. In. Last one. Out. Excellent work. Come in. Lower your knees. And rest for a moment. Maybe sway the hips side to side. Slowly from here, lower onto your belly. We're coming into a prone series here. You can rest your hands in front of you and then bring your forehead onto your hands. Here, I want you to take your knees to the wide edges of your mat. You can bend the knees and bring the inner edges of your feet to touch. So the big toe side of your foot, see if you can press there to create some activation in the glutes. Keep that press, spread the toes. And then as you're ready, tiny lifts with the knees up and back. Come down. Lift up, press the big toe side of the foot together and come back down. Lift up, keep the hip points grounded and back down. If you need to, you can bring an ear to the mat, however it's most comfortable in the upper body so that you can focus the work and the awareness on the lower body. As you come up, squeeze the big toe side of the foot to the midline. Imagine you had a piece of paper that you're trying not to drop. Squeeze it up and back. So this exercise, a great one, not only for the glutes, but for the low back, to strengthen, to improve posture, and to support your body in every movement, functional or otherwise. Let's take 10 more here. 10, lift, squeeze. 9, 8, 7, really squeeze the inner edges of the feet. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. You can shake out your feet here. Come into Sphinx pose. So forearms up onto the mat. And as promised, we'll alternate between stretching and strength. So really lift up through the heart. So you find this very gentle back bend here. I love this as an accessible back bend. Then we'll take the left forearm, turn it so that it's parallel to the short edge of your mat. So you're turning at 90 degrees. Keep your left leg extending back, bend your right knee, and reach your right hand for the outside of your right foot. This might be a lot of sensation right from the start. If you can, begin to press your foot into your right hand into your foot. Once you have that, then try to square the shoulders to the front. Once you have that, hug the inner thighs to the midline and iterate now. Once again, kicking foot into hand, hand into foot, squaring the shoulders, hugging the inner thighs to the midline. So we're not trying to lift the right knee off the mat, keeping it nice and grounded so that we focus the stretch into the quadricep and slowly release. Pillow the head on the hands, windshield wiper your knees side to side. Releasing the low back, and just notice, even with that simple stretch, can you pick up on the change from side to side? I know for me, I can feel the kind of the awakening in the psoas, which creates sensation in the low back on the right side now. Coming back into Sphinx as you're ready, set it up. So really keeping that square plane so the shoulders and the hips stay facing forward. Turn your right forearm in and then begin to reach for your left foot. So bending that left knee. And again, you might be here nice and low. That's okay. You can iterate. So as you kick the foot into the hand, you might lift a little. Pull the hand back into the foot, stretch the chest. And then square the shoulders to the front, hug the inner thighs to the midline. If you feel any pulling on the knee joint, you can always come out and back this off a little bit. This can be done with the chest completely prone, so you can bring your forehead back down to the mat. Just really acknowledging where you are, where you have the space to move further, and where you need to dial it back. So for me, I feel a bit of pulling on my knee here, coming down just a touch on this side. And recognizing that difference from left to right, what that might be telling you. My left side here showing me that it's a little bit tighter. Soften the head and neck wherever you are, release the jaw. And then slowly let it go. Pillow the head on the hands, windshield wiper your feet side to side here. Only when you're ready, let your hands come under your shoulders. Keep the knees grounded, press up into tabletop. So here, after that stretch in the quad, it might feel nice to sway the hips, maybe even a little gentle cat. Try to avoid the temptation to come into your deepest forward bend here. And then we'll take the hands slightly forward of your shoulders. So the wrists are slightly ahead of the shoulders. The hips are directly over the knees. Keep your left shin on the mat. And with an inhale, stretch your right leg up and back. Keep it level first. So keep that back leg horizontal. And you can adjust the position of your hands. So for me, feels a little bit better maybe having the wrists a little bit closer to the shoulders. Curl the inner right thigh up in space so that you know your hips and pelvis are level. And then here we'll take tiny lifts. So we'll lift up, tap the toes down. Lift up, tap the toes down. As you lift up, keep that gap between the low ribs and hip points closed. So we're not arching in the low back, but instead we're recruiting the glutes to make the lift happen. As you lift your leg up, try not to open the hips. So the tendency, especially if you have tight hips or tight low back, might be to pop that hip open to get the leg higher. But instead, keep the pelvis level, keep the hips square, and lift up and lower. Squeeze inner thighs to the midline and come down. Next time your leg is lifted, hold here. This is where it might feel good to walk the hands slightly forward. Big inhale breath. You can tuck the back toes for more support, more stability if you need. From here, we're going to exhale, come into a push-up, lower down. Inhale, rise up. On your next exhale, take your right knee toward your right tricep. Inhale, re-extend, push up, lift up, and tap the knee. As you tap the knee, your hip will externally rotate. That's okay. Lower down, exhale. Inhale, press up. Knee taps. And re-extend. Lower down, press up. As you bring the knee in, can you keep the side waist long? So avoid crunching, but instead stay elongated as you contract that side waist. Last 3 here. Lift up, push up, extend, and tap. Last 2. Up and tap. Keep the low back stable here by closing that gap, low ribs and hip points. And rest. Bring the right toes down, stretch the calf. So right toes on the mat. Imagine you were trying to touch your right heel to the mat behind you. You can even kickstand your left shin in slightly and bend back just a little bit to stretch the outer hips here. Almost like a modified pigeon. And just to release that supporting leg, which was working just as hard to stabilize the movement. Coming back up here. Back to your tabletop. We'll switch sides. So Sunbird first, right shin stays down. Extend the left leg up and back. Find your stable position first. So hips are level, shoulders are square. And then we can add some range of motion. So lift up, tap the toes. Lift up, tap the toes down. As you do this, again, can you focus on closing the gap, low ribs and hip points, so that you're not making up for the mobility in the hips by dumping it in the low back. So we're staying strong and integrated the whole way through. Lift and lower. You can get a bit higher. Notice how that changes the sensation. What muscles have to participate to get your leg to go higher without letting that left hip pop up. Last 3, 2, and 1. Next time your leg is elevated, pause here. We're coming into those Sunbird push-ups with the knee tap to the same side tricep. So here we go. Shift your weight forward, push up. Inhale to come up. Knee taps the tricep. Reach back, push up, and tap. If your shoulders or your chest are feeling tired, you need not come all the way down. It can be a tiny pulse push-up at the top. It doesn't have to be the full range. Reach back, push up, and lift. Tap. So as you bring the knee to the arm, can you keep the right hip stable and square? You'll feel that. Concentrate the effort in the side waist. You can't take any of it out by dumping into the right hip. If you're keeping that boundary, it requires a lot more effort, a lot more concentration. Last one here, lift up, come down, and tap. Reach that left leg back, bring the toes to the mat, press into the ball of the left foot, and reach through the heel to stretch the calf. Once you're there, kickstand the right shin, so bring the right foot to the left side of your mat, and ever so slightly lean back until you feel a stretch in the outer right hip. Last big breath here. And coming back through center, both knees to the mat. From here, we're going to come down onto the forearms. So you're in your kind of puppy pose. And then we're transitioning to a side plank, but with a forearm and the knees down. So you can take your right forearm, parallel it to the short side of your mat. Bring your knees to touch in the middle of your mat, and then rotate onto the side. So you set up this nice forearm side plank here. Keep the inner thighs, the legs squeezing to the midline. And then we'll simply work through our clam movement. So opening that knee out and closing. Out and closing. You might have to adjust. I like to have the knees kind of bisecting the forearm so that my body is in a straight line. But find whatever alignment feels best where you can access this movement pattern in the lower body. From here, we'll take 3 more like this before adding on. 2 and 1. The next time you open up, extend that leg out. Back and close. Open up, extend, back and close. So the inner edges of the feet stay glued together through that clamshell movement. Open, extend, back and close. Last 3. 3. Breathe. And 2. Extend, flex the top of your leg. Come back down. Last 1. Open, squeeze the glutes. Extend, and back down. Take a pause. Let your hips come down to the mat. We're going to come onto that right hand for a moment and kind of shrug the right shoulder so that you feel a stretch in the side waist. Just releasing any tension there. And then we have 1 more round of side plank here on this side before switching. So we'll come back down into the forearm side plank. And here we'll simply lift the hips up and dip down. Lift up and down. So really squeeze the legs together at the top. Press through the forearm to create that arc in the underside waist. So you have that space between your body and the floor. We're adding on in 3, 2, and 1. Lift up, reach the arm overhead, and this time hug knee to elbow. Reach back, lower down, lift up, knee to elbow. So creating a bit more strength, a bit more balance challenge. You can always just stay with the hip dips if that felt better. And lower. Last 3. Up, grab the knee, out and back. Lift up, take the knee out in front of you so you have a bit of balance challenge. You have to counter that lever arm with some strength. Last one here. Lower, up, and tap. Excellent job. Come down. We'll take that stretch again on this side. Just shrug into your right shoulder. Stretch the right side way. So I'll be opposite you now. You might be, instead of the mirror image, we'll be opposite sides for this side plank series. And then we'll simply switch to the other side. So now coming into your forearm side plank, once again, onto the forearm, stacking the hips, stacking the knees, and lifting up into your side plank. Keep the inner edges of the feet pressing into each other. And then we'll simply open out and close. Open out and close. Squeeze the inner edges of the feet together to activate the glute. And at the same time, you're pressing down into the forearm to create that space between your body and the floor. Use your breath here. Notice if your shoulders start to shrug, can you soften them? Can you soften the muscles in your face so that all of the effort is happening in the low body? Last 3 here, and then we'll add that leg extension. 2, and 1. Extend. Come back, close, open, squeeze, extend, engage the top of the leg, back, and close. Open, reach, extend, back, and close. You should feel that supporting leg really fire here. And close. Open, extend, keep the chest nice and broad, and close. Last 3. Open, reach, back, and close. Last 2. You got this. As promised, there's a stretch coming. Open, extend, back, and close. Hips come down. Come onto your left hand. Shrug that left shoulder so that you can stretch the left side waist. Be here for a few breaths, as much as you need, as long as you need to kind of shake it out. We have one more side plank series, and then we're coming back onto the belly. Coming down, set up your forearm side plank once again. And as you're ready, begin to lift the hips up into side plank. You can adjust the knees if you need to here. Then from here, simply lower and lift. Press down to lift. Feel that stretch. You can add the arm here, over and back down. Reach up and over and back down. And down. Next time that you are elevated, hips up, touch knee to elbow, bring it out in front of you. Reach, come back down. Reach up, knee to elbow. And back down. Reach up, take it nice out in front of you. You can make it super slow to keep that tension. Really work the lever out in front of you. Last 3 like this. 3. Breathe. 2. And last one. Here we go. And rest. Come down onto the left hand. Shrug that left shoulder. Stretch the left side waist. Be here for a breath or two. And then we'll come onto the belly, back into our Sphinx position. So just to kind of even out the low back and the side waist, we'll come into our Sphinx roll. So elbows under the shoulders, pressing into the forearms, lift up through the chest, and then keep the tops of the feet down. Press from the hip points all the way to the tops of the feet. And as you're ready, keep the knees grounded. Just curl the belly up ever so slightly, tuck your chin. Reopen, extend all the way, and exhale, coil the belly in, shortening that gap from hip points to low ribs. Find the full extension of the spine, and then curl it in. Open, reach, and curl in. Last one here. Open the chest and curl in. Coming down now onto your belly. Sway the hips side to side. Enjoy a breath or two. Then we're moving into swimmers. So before, when we were on the belly, we were lifting the low body. Now we're going to keep the legs nice and heavy, grounding into the earth. And instead, we're lifting up with the arms. So you'll reach overhead. You can keep the gaze down. And then swim out to the side. Lift the chest. Squeeze the elbows behind you. Reach, lower, lift, exhale, squeeze the elbows. So imagine like you were swimming, kind of that nice wide breaststroke here. Can you create lots of space between the shoulders and the ears? So keep the neck very long and spacious. We're not shrugging the shoulders. This is another great one for postural strength, for helping to keep you upright. Let's do 10 more. 10, 9, keep the legs heavy, press the tops of the legs down. 8, 7, you should feel the rivers of the spine awakening. 5 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Reach the arms out. From here, we'll extend the body, roll onto your back. Reaching the arms overhead, just taking a full body stretch here for a moment. We have one final series before we cool down completely. So we'll come with the hands beside you now, bring them down, and press into your forearms to lift the chest. So you can keep the elbows directly under the shoulders, press the forearms into the mat, really anchor the palms to lift the heart and chest, and then add a gentle squeeze of the elbows behind you. Stretch the toes, stretch the legs. Maybe you take the head back. This is a modified fish pose here, just stretching the front of the chest. And then slowly coming all the way up to your seat. And let your feet be slightly in front of your knees. Bring your hands behind you, fingertips facing forward. So start to move through upward table with a tricep dip. So it looks like this. We inhale up, exhale, dip the hips and bend the elbows. Lift up, stretch the chest, come into that kind of that glute bridge and lower down. Lift up, table, and come down. Bend the elbows. Use the triceps. You should start to feel this pretty quickly, even with body weight only. You can change the position of your feet so that your ankles are directly under your knees, so that you can really engage the glutes by pressing the feet down. Try not to arch the low back, so come into that neutral plane. And then here, if you like, you can add on. Might start to turn the fingers slightly out and then add opposite hand to opposite foot. Can even be opposite hand to opposite knee. Just adding a bit of balance, a bit of core strength and stability here. Tap down, lift up. So it's super slow motion. I know for me, I usually perform this movement as part of bodyweight cardio sessions or HIIT sessions. And it is much more challenging when you slow it down, when you have to use the strength to balance the body. Let's take 4 more. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come down, shake out your wrists, and as you're ready, we'll lower all the way onto the back. Bring your heels toward your hips and take just a mini glute bridge so that you can see where your ankles need to be. Maybe you need to move your feet forward or back. You want them to be directly under your knees as your hips lift. We'll start with our single leg glute bridge. Left foot stays grounded, right leg straight up. And from here, we're simply lifting and lowering. Find that rotation, that hip hinge to make the movement happen. So your shoulders are staying stable, head and neck are stable. We're really focusing the effort in that bottom glute. Reach the sole of the foot straight up and straight down. Lift it up and lower. You can adjust your foot if you need to find that perfect position where you can leverage the strength in that bottom leg. Last 10, 9, 8, feel that glute working. 7, 6, 5, 4, you got this, stay with it. 3, 2, and 1. Both feet down. Windshield wiper the knees side to side. Before we go to the second side, we'll enjoy some glute bridge walkouts to activate the hamstrings. So bring the feet back to parallel. Hands are by your sides. Lift up into your glute bridge. Close the gap between hip points and low ribs. From here, simply step out to the heels and back in. You might find that you travel a bit on your mat, so you can always adjust your position. And the legs need not be all the way straight, so you can keep a bend in the knees if that supports your low back. Sometimes going all the way straight puts a lot of strain in the low back, so it can be a little or a lot. You can walk out 1 step or maybe even 2 steps. Just finding that engagement in the hamstrings by pressing the heels into the mat and lifting up. Try to keep the pelvis at the same height throughout the full walk. That'll keep the glutes engaged. You might even start to feel the inner thighs. Last 2, walk it out, out, in. Last 1. And in, rest, come down. You might need to adjust if you traveled at all during that exercise. We'll come into our second side of the single leg glute bridge. So this time, right leg is down, left leg straight up. Find your alignment in that bottom foot, and as you're ready, we'll lift up and lower. Hinge and lift. So feel the movement happening only in the hips. Not arching the low back. We're not moving the shoulders. Not craning through the neck. Just focusing that drive through the bottom heel. Take the sole of the top foot straight up and straight down. Last 10 here. 10, 9, 8, you got it. 7, try not to puff the low ribs. 5, keep the pelvis level. 3, 2, really squeeze, and 1, come down. Windshield wiper the knees side to side. We are almost there. We're in our home stretch now. This time, take a butterfly shape in the legs, so bring the soles of the feet to touch. Hug the heels as close to your sitting bones as they'll go. Knees are nice and wide, hands are by your sides. We'll enjoy the glute bridge now in the butterfly position. Take a deep inhale. And as you're ready, exhale, press up, squeeze the glutes and lower. Imagine like you're trying to keep your knees open, but you have that effort like you're trying to bring the inner thighs together. Lift up, squeeze the glutes. Up, press through the outer edges of both feet and down. Lift and lower. Lift up and down. Here we go. Almost there. Let's do 10 more. 10, squeeze. Here you really feel the inner thighs. 7, not puffing the low ribs. If anything, giving a little bit of a posterior tilt, so a slight tuck in the tailbone at the top. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Come down, hug the knees into your chest, curl up into a little ball. So a little bit of a sneaky practice where not a lot of exertion, not high intensity, but you feel that focused strength, that focused effort. From here, roll onto the left side of your body. And once you're there, extend your arms out in front of you, palms touching. I want you to stack your hips so that your knees are one on top of the other and hips are one on top of the other. Shoulders are stacked in a nice line here. I want you to keep your legs really heavy, squeeze the legs into each other, and then take that top arm, open it out to the side. So you might find your knees pop up, or maybe they move from their square position. That's okay. But really kind of setting up the twist to soothe the spine, to really rotate and enjoy a little bit of kind of cleansing, massaging in the low back. You can even take your gaze over the right shoulder. And if it feels good, creating that bit of squeeze to the midline to kind of stabilize the low body so that you can ground both shoulders onto the mat. If you have the space, you might have arms out to T, or maybe you're in a cactus like me. And here, can you inflate the lungs so much that your low belly expands? So feel that bit of resistance from the twist. So it's harder to inflate the belly. You have to work harder with the breath to make that happen. So can you create that internal massage using the breath? As you're ready, let your knees come back through center. So we'll come out a slightly different way than we entered. And we'll switch sides. So rolling onto your right side now. Stacking the knees, stacking the hips and shoulders, reaching the arms out in front of you. Squeeze the legs to the midline. So create that muscle tone and that anchoring, that heaviness in the low body. And then begin to open your left arm out to the side. So again, you might notice your knees pop up. That's okay. Be here, maybe closing the eyes. Wherever you need to make changes, just to allow your body to relax into this shape. And again, that practice of expanding the lungs, expanding the ribs against the force of the twist. So using this position to kind of give your breath some strength training. And grounding both shoulders. Here it might feel good to move the jaw side to side. Just relax any tension in the face and the neck. Last big belly breath here. Slowly coming back through center. This time moving through happy baby. You can bring your knees into chest and then let your knees splay open. Reach for the inner or outer edges of your feet and then bring your feet directly over your knees, soles of the feet towards the sky. Aim the tops of your thighs to the outer ribs. Imagine you could touch the tops of your thighs to the mat beside you. Maybe rocking gently side to side. You might bend and straighten alternate legs. Just feeling all the places that you might need a bit of attention there in the lower body. Just allowing your body to be self-soothed, much in the way that a happy baby might do. Last few breaths here. And then as you're ready, come back into that butterfly shape or bound angle pose with the feet touching and the knees apart. Then you might take your hands to the outer thighs here and just lift up onto the forearms. Kind of that modified fish pose once again. And see what happens when you move your pubic bone toward the mat in front of you, toward your big toes. Can you create more of a stretch here? And then slowly pressing up to a seat. We have one more stretch that is a bit of a setup here, so bear with me as I walk you through it. I want you to come into kind of a cross-legged position. If you can, crossing at the ankles and kind of tucking your feet underneath so you have this shape kind of locked in place. And then we'll walk the hands forward, keeping that shape, that cross-legged shape in your legs. Imagine you had kind of something tying your feet to your shins so that they stay in place. And then we'll lower onto the belly, keeping that shape in the legs. You might have to adjust to let your hips come down, but really ground your hip points into the mat. Keep your knees nice and wide, and then squeeze your feet in toward your hips. This might be plenty of stretch with the forehead resting on the hands. This might be where you stay. If you want to go a little bit deeper, come into the Sphinx arms, so coming up onto the forearms. Keep the hip points pressing down, keep your knees pressing down, squeeze your feet toward your sits bones. Nice deep stretch here. And then slowly unraveling the legs. Can lift the hips to rest your legs facing down. And then we'll come into our crocodile pose, just resting forehead on the hands. Allow your sacrum to sway from side to side. We'll close out our practice in this downward facing shape, this downward facing rest pose. But if this is too much, you can always come onto your back. You can lay on the side if that feels better. Or just really absorb the energetic quality of turning inward. So that's largely what's happening in the luteal phase. We spend the first half of the cycle expanding, opening, radiating outward. And then we make that return to self in the second half of the cycle, completing and moving deeper into the layers. You might be craving more alone time. You might be limiting different stimulation. Sometimes it can feel good to be in a prone position where your eyes are not activated. You can breathe against the resistance of the floor. Feel that anchoring quality, that gravity beneath you. As you continue just swaying or moving however you like, take any final breaths, any final thoughts that you'd like to close your practice with. And perhaps once again, surveying your inner landscape to notice any changes. Notice anything that feels different, any parts of you that feel more alive, more relaxed, more awake. And then only when you're ready, please take as much time as you need. Bring your hands beside you and make the journey back up to a comfortable seat, either cross-legged or on the knees. And be very gentle with yourself as you come out of your practice and out of that downward facing shape. It can be a bit alarming to come right back into the light and brightness. So just be gentle, maybe keep a soft gaze. I want to thank you so much for practicing with me today, for keeping your body in motion and circulation throughout what can be sometimes a challenging luteal phase, especially in the final days of your cycle where maybe fatigue is coming up or maybe you're having some symptoms of PMS. This grounding practice is a great way to soothe and to kind of come back into self so that you can replenish your energy stores and start the new cycle with vibrancy, with more energy and really stay empowered in your cyclical nature. So thank you for being here and for letting your body be moved.